Saunders. So you made yet another video, this time about Horus, probably because I mentioned him in the last video, even though you refused to accept that video response. About Horus and how he's not really similar to Jesus. But I'm here to tell you that, well, I really think that religioustolerance.org said it best. Many non-Christian religions, pagans and others, permeated the Mediterranean during the 1st century Common Era. There were numerous male heroes, saviors, and god-men with Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Hindu, and other pantheons of gods whose lives had many points of similarities to Jesus. Of those, the Egyptian god Horus probably had life events attributed to him that were closest matched to that of Jesus, yet Horus was worshipped in Egypt thousands of years before the 1st century Common Era, when Jesus is believed to have been conducting his ministry in Palestine. In order to compete with those religions, early Christianity had no choice but to describe Jesus in terms that matched or surpassed the competing local religious myths, stories, and legends. The authors of the Gospels may well have picked up themes from other sources and added them to their writings in order to make Christianity more credible to a largely Greek pagan world. The funny thing is that the Gospels were written several years after Jesus' death. Actually, it says here at the top, if one places the 4 Gospels in chronological order, Mark circa 79 CE, Matthew, Luke, and John circa 100 Common Era, and read them with no preconceived beliefs of the nature of Jesus, it's obvious that many persons in that story of Jesus evolved from that of a teacher healer to a man God. It's pretty obvious that these 4 Gospels added things from other pagan myths in order to make Jesus seem divine. And we're going to go through a couple of those things that you mentioned here. Now, they're not all from one God. You're right, and no one God completely matches the story of Jesus. But many of the things he did, including his miracles, very special parts of his life, obviously came from previous myth. Horus was the son of Isis, Mary, and Osiris. You said that he's the son of Ra and Hathor, and that's not right. Jesus gets compared to many deities. We're going to talk about Krishna, we're going to talk about Osiris, we're going to talk about Dionysus. But there's many others besides that. There's Mithras. The whole ritual of eating bread and drinking wine to symbolize the body and blood of Jesus came from, among others, the Egyptians, who ate bread and drank beer to symbolize the body and blood of Osiris. But I do believe there was also a bread and wine celebration for Dionysus. Please correct me if I'm wrong. These types of celebrations and even baptism was, Horus himself was baptized in a river and things like that. You can go to religioustolerance.org, and a lot of this information is here for you. So if you want to buzz around this website, there's religioustolerance.org. It's not written by any specific religion. There's people here who are Christian. There's people here who are pagan. There's people here who are atheists, and they all write to this website. So there's no sense of bias here. There's no bias. You can't say that they're biased, but there's a whole list of things and that are similarity. Now, you mentioned the virgin birth, and yes, there is some doubt that Horus was conceived by a virgin, but there is no doubt that Krishna was. So obviously, the whole idea of virgin birth also not, it's not original to Jesus. In fact, really, none of his, mentioned life events really are original to him. Water into wine, that was Dionysus. Horus calmed the waters to walk on them. And said, be still, just like Jesus did. These are things that it's pretty obvious that, the 4 Gospels, the 4 apostles that wrote the Gospels, obviously had time to, take them from previous myths. And a lot of these previous pagan myths do share a lot of these, attributes to them, I mentioned in another previous video about how, there is basically a very big similarity between Jesus and his sermons and Buddha and his sermons. Buddha as well has a lot of similarities to Jesus. But, the idea is that, all these special characteristics that you're talking about to Jesus that you consider truth, they're not truth. They're taken from previous pagan myths in order to try to make Jesus more credible. It's pretty obvious. And so, you talk about coming to truth. Well, what you have to realize is that most pagans used to be Christian. They realized that Christianity wasn't truth and went and found other things. Most Christians don't really study other religions other than to try to debunk them. But if you realize, logically, there's no other way to really get around it, and that is that it's pretty obvious. Jesus came later, and all these different attributes about his life are obviously written into the Gospels in order to make the story more credible. There's really no other way that I can say it, so I think that's going to be pretty much it. All I can say, Saunders, is that you keep making videos about pagan gods, I'm going to keep, coming after you for them, because, lately on YouTube, what credibility you had, which wasn't much, has been destroyed. Dynamite Destiny made those videos about you, showed that you were not only a religious bigot, you were also a racist. So, you really need to think about your own actions and why it is that you feel the need to cling to Christianity and to try to destroy other religions. Do you think maybe it's because there's really not a lot of credibility to Christianity, and so you have to try to fight for it? Do you think maybe it's because Christianity is dying, and you're getting angry that you see so many people who aren't Christians walk around? I see you walk around Hollywood and get angry at people and rant and rave about this and that because you realize that the world doesn't belong to you anymore. And I think that, if you really just, step back and look at yourself and why it is that you're doing those actions, maybe you can let go of some of that and, become a more sane, healthy person.